Hello and welcome back. Thank you for listening to my videos. So I'm gonna talk about the next class in the Upledger therapy curriculum, which is Somato-Emotional Release 1. Somato-Emotional Release 1 is the full range of craniosacral therapy tools. So anything we have learned in Cranial 1 and Cranial 2 for supporting trauma resolution. So in SER1, there's also a book. I didn't pull it out. It's in the shelf. Yeah, it's called Somato-Emotional Release 1. Really interesting, I think, also for a layperson, because it explains more now the somatic component in the body and how we are holding memories, accidents, traumatic events, abuse, psychospiritual trauma, and yeah, all kind of things. And what am I going to talk about? Oh yeah, my experience in Somato-Emotional Release 1, which is like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 14 years. And so in Somato-Emotional Release 1, we are learning another piece to the mouth work, which is looking at I believe that's the Sutherland restrictions. I haven't TA'd it in a while. And some other components to mouth work that should be added, a little bit more complex, with better resolution. The avenue of expression, obviously, which is all the throat, which is all these tissues, because again, like I said in the last video, you really need to have this balance, because otherwise it is too painful. The person can't move out what needs to come out, and that applies also to the somatics, just talking about it, letting things out. So I'm gonna share a story, from my class and my own experience. So in Somato-Emotional Release 1, at least back then, we have lecture, talk about things, and then somatics, and then goes into the dialoguing component, like dialoguing with the body. Again, Dr. Upledger termed it the inner physician. So accessing the inner physician, that part of your client that knows what the body needs. Of course, we're practicing dialoguing. Most of us, we're not psychotherapists, so it's kind of like weird when you're practicing, because you're not really like in tune, because now you have to do something, and you're usually in groups of 3 therapists. So we're already doing the multi-hands. One is the lead therapist, and the other one is the assistant therapist. So the lead therapist, and then of course one student, one of us is on the table, and the assistant therapist is there to monitor the cranial rhythm, because we're teaching the significance detector. I can't recall if you teach it already in CS2, but it doesn't really matter. So significance detector, which means we are teaching, for those who are not intuitive to feel it, like this, like whatever, yeah, how I used to feel things all the time, because I would know right away, boom, something is off. But we can teach it. We teach it, tune into the cranial rhythm, and you will feel what the person is talking about. If it's significant, that's why you call it significance detector, cranial rhythm will stop. You'll be like, oh, that's a significant part. If it doesn't stop, it's literally just what I call hairdresser talking, like you're at the hairdresser and you're just talking. If it's significant, and then the assistant therapist shows the lead therapist, oh, that was significant, so that the therapist who's supposed to dialogue will know, oh, that's the part that we're dialoguing with. In my case, with my group, they didn't really find anything, so we had the teacher come over. And I'm going to share this because it is very important. Obviously it's my story, but it just gives you the example. It shows you that there are things in our tissues, in our body, that cause a restriction in the fascia or in a joint that is connected to a story or an experience that we have forgotten about. So I'm on the table. The teaching assistant comes over and starts dialoguing. And I didn't find the story. I didn't know what it's about, but my arm started going up. Boom, like this. And it was significant. And so the teacher started guiding me to find what this is about. Once I found what it's about, so here I am, 40 years old, in my 40s, and I'm laying, and I have my fist like this, and I'm like, oh my God. So I kept my eyes closed, and I'm like, instead of thinking what it could be, I let it come to me, and it showed me it as a physician, or the intelligence of my body showed me what that story was about. And that's very simple somatics. It's our reptilian brain, our fight or flight response, because it brought me back to when I was 18. I was dating someone who was emotionally not so stable, I would say. I didn't see it in the beginning, and he did some trick on me, which I thought back then, because now I'm going back to like, yeah, how did I feel about it back then? And I'm like, oh yeah, back then I thought it was so stupid, I literally wanted to punch him in the face. But of course we don't go around punching people in the faces. At least I don't beat people. I don't think I've ever gotten into a fight or anything. I'm a woman, I'm a girl, I don't fight. But my body, not my cerebral cortex, but my body, the fight or flight, I had to freeze, because I didn't want to run away. I usually don't run away. I couldn't fight, because again, I couldn't just go and punch someone. I mean, I could have, but it's not really the right way to do. So I had to freeze. And that freezing was still in my arm. And once I identified, with the help of the instructor, or in this case it could have been a fellow therapist, once I identified what it was about, it released and my arm softened, and that story was gone. So that's what a somato-emotional release looks like, just to make a long story short. I mean, there are more things. like I mentioned already in the doula video, I had something else come up. But yeah, so that was my experience at SER1. Oh, there was another one. It was the teaching assistant helped me, and that was about, I was laying because I was the demo on the table for my group, and I couldn't really access it. But what it was and what I held in my body, and I went into just the feeling. So instead of like just thinking what it is, like go into the feeling and see what it is, what does it bring up for you. So for me, it brought up always being sick. It's always cold. So it's like Germany, like what I didn't like, oh, it's always cold and damp and overcast. I'm always sick. And my baby guinea pig died. And I was 4 years old or 5 years old. So, but I still remember it. And so I'm laying on the table and I cried it out. Boom! That was another release. I don't have to carry that. It still makes me sad, maybe a little bit to this day, because I love my animals, but not this intense charge that it had in my body. So that's to understand what somato-emotional releases are about. And I'm going to share a release in any workshop. Every workshop I had something come up. I mean, that's why I took so much training. And I also had a lot of things going on, because I was never really balanced. My nervous system was always constantly firing, because I just lived under my leg. So of course I'm like, and I'm very empathic. So the whole thing about like being an empowered empath is you need to do your house clearing. All the stuff you collected over all these years needs to get out, so that you can have a peaceful life, because you don't want to be suffering for a long time. Well, thank you for listening, and up to our next class.